World of Warcraft is huge, and I'm trying to explore it all with my own 2 feet. For every step I take in the real world, I can take one more step in game. In the real world, I track my steps using a Fitbit, and in game, I've created my own custom add-on to track my hero's steps. This is Solemate, and the add-on is synced to his walking cycle, so no matter how fast he's moving, it counts as though he got there using only regular steps. My 2 goals are simple: to be healthier in real life, and to explore all of Azeroth. This is Steplocked. I'll put the rules on screen briefly here, but if you're new, please check out the previous videos for more explanations and to see my journey along the way. As I enter and start day 1 of Ashenvale, I've walked a total of 103,261 steps, and have about 7,000 steps remaining from finishing the Northern Barrens. 103,000 steps is the same as about 49 miles while walking the entire length of the state of Rhode Island. I know it's a small state, but that's still crazy. My current steps per quest average is 600, so I'm curious to see how this zone stacks up against the others. So during editing, I realized that I've kind of been messing up the stats so far in the series, but don't worry about that. I've corrected it now with a full document, and I'll show you some cool ways to compare them at the end of the video. Also, for those people who are invested in my personal health journey, I'm definitely going to get into that more in the next zone. The first few quests of Ashenvale are actually in the Morshan Outpost, where we left off, which is still technically in the Northern Barrens. So some of my first steps will count between the 2 zones, but for today I'm going to count them as Ashenvale. Also, check out Solemate's fit. So bad. I'm definitely going to have to try and fix that eventually. So the plan for Ashenvale is simple: complete every storyline, explore every area, tame a unique pet, and complete Blackfathom deeps with my own steps. Ashenvale is a unique zone to what we've seen so far, as it's a contested zone. This means that both the Horde and the Alliance have a presence here, with their own strongholds and quests. It is also very wooded and difficult to traverse, unlike the Barrens and Durotar. I may not be able to just run in a straight line everywhere. For the Horde, I have 4 main quest hubs spanning the large zone. There are a total of only 42 required quests to complete all of the storylines. This means despite being the largest zone by area size so far, it has the fewest required quests. On top of being the largest zone, Blackfathom Deeps is another 8-boss dungeon, so the step fee to enter at 2,000 steps per boss will once again be 16,000 steps. There are a lot of quests at the outpost here available, but the only ones that are required involve an orc named Gorat. So after a couple of quests helping his ghost out, I get my first ferry of the zone. After coming out of the Northern Barrens, I was kind of hoping this zone wouldn't be so ferry friendly, but we'll have to see. The Kodo ride takes me up to the lumber camp, where the next 2 quests await. These may be some of the most annoying quests in the game so far, as one makes you slowly wait for 5 orcs to cut lumber, and another makes you collect 5 oil from some slimes that is a pretty low drop rate. While questing here, this is where I first run into Sharp Talon, a special mob in Ashenvale. It's a hippogriff, and was definitely a contender for my pet in the zone, but you're able to get hippogriffs in a few areas, so I decided to go with something else. The quest Sharp Talon drops though, although easy, is also not a required quest for any of the storylines. Along with the low oil drop rate, the slimes being pretty spread out, and Sharp Talon ganking me every minute or so, this quest alone took me almost 600 steps, which is pretty crazy considering the objective is right next to the quest giver. With the quest out of the way though, I was surprised. Not by a ferry this time, but a whole cutscene. It was pretty cool to watch the cutscene as you ride through Kodo and ram through some Alliance, and you actually end up back at the Morshan Ramparts. Immediately though, is followed by another ferry by way of a free flight path to the second main quest hub of the zone, Splintertree Post. Despite this area not being very central in the zone, it is a large quest hub, so I make sure to set my hearth and grab the flight path. Now let me introduce you to the most evil thing in the game so far, the Splintertree Mine. Whoever had the idea to put a quest NPC at the back of the cave is insane, as it takes over 150 steps just to get back there, and then another 150 steps to leave. And, spoiler alert, it's going to make us do that a few times. One of the required quests sends me underground into a twisting maze of a cave to corrupt the forest heart. This cave alone takes 600 steps to traverse, and then once I'm out, I accidentally start running back to the outpost instead of to the nearby quest, wasting some steps. After collecting the Fell Fires and having just over 2,500 steps left for the day already, I decide to hearth back to Splintertree Post to preserve what little I had left. Of course they send me right back into the mine, which means another long run, but at least this time they give me a task to do, which is to collect some more while I'm in there. For the next quest to defend Splintertree Post, Solemate is turned into an imp. But not just any imp. A dirty, devious, depraved little imp. Okay. So I head outside and up the guard tower to cast Fell Magic on the attackers and head back into the mine for a third time to turn it in. I'm a little confused at this point as the questline here seems to end abruptly, but I do still have another objective to go and do elsewhere. So with a quick fence jump off the guard tower, I head out. With under 1,000 steps remaining for the day, the next quest giver gives me 2 objectives, but once they're done with pet pulls and careful pathing, I'm able to turn them in with only 24 steps left. I stroll in the direction of the next quests and run out for day 1. I got 13 quests done on day 1 here with an average step count of 558. That's lower than my overall average so far, but there's a lot of zone left to do. Day 2 begins and I log 11,392 steps onto Solemate. The real life steps are easy on my working days, but it turns out that the real challenge is hitting those step goals on my day off. Especially when I'm trying to play or edit, as you'll unfortunately see coming up. But, with plenty of steps logged, we set off for the day. I'm sent to a keep under siege where they task me to find the hidden assassin within the camp. I had the bright idea to use the flare in my toolkit. The flare is supposed to reveal any stealth enemies where you cast it, but disappointingly, it doesn't seem to work on this assassin. I spend about 200 steps checking the other areas in the camp, just for the assassin to be exactly where I cast my flare. Definitely a waste of a few steps. After a moderate run, I turn in the quest to see I've completed a storyline before hearthing back to Splintertree. The next quest is available now, and it's to take a letter to Orgrimmar. I was very thankful that I had allowed flight paths to be used at this point, because this alone would have cost me thousands of steps just for this one quest. After a quick lap to Orgrimmar and back, it's back into the mine for the 4th and final time to kill this guy who was secretly a demon the whole time, meaning we spent almost 1,600 steps just within the mine. Then, if I wasn't thankful enough already, they send me right back to Orgrimmar to report my mission. I stopped by the trading post this time to see if I could fix Solemate's bad fashion sense, but I inevitably decide that his patchwork gear is amusing, and it would be fun to see how it evolves over time. Do you guys think I should keep it as is, or should I try to find a good transmog? Let me know. Once I get back to Splintertree Post, there are no more required quests available. There may have been something that points me in the right direction, but it definitely wasn't a necessary quest. I make a call, and for the first time in a while, I head to the next quest hub without a ferry. From my research, I can tell there should be quests at Silverwind Retreat, and it takes me about 1,000 steps to get there. But once I do, I scour the area for the quests, and there's nothing. So I grab the flight path and start running to the next quest hub instead. The next one is definitely more central to the zone, and it's called Hellscream's Watch. So after another 1,000 step run, I finally find some required quests. I yeet myself off the cliff into the water below to get them done. I feel like at this point it's worth mentioning that I've made my decision on how I'm going to use mounts. I've decided to not use mounts, at least for now. But I've decided that unless absolutely necessary, I'm never going to use flying mounts. Areas like this that I'm questing in right now would be made much easier flying over all the obstacles, cliffs, trees, and other things like that. I'm in no rush to complete this challenge, and I want to navigate it how I would in real life on my own feet, so for the most part, no mounts in the foreseeable future. I scale the cliff and turn that quest in, and then one bombing run later, I've completed another storyline. They send me back to the previous hub, Silverwind Retreat, which just had no quests when I was in there, but now it finally does. I'm tasked with collecting some scrap and killing stealth enemies. This is pretty annoying as I can't plan out a good path between enemies since I can't see them. I also can't even fight them from a range or pet pull them as they don't show up until I'm standing right next to them. It's definitely a good counter to my usual mob killing strategies, and it takes me over 1,100 steps to complete these quests. But once I do, another storyline is complete. There didn't seem to be many storylines in this zone at all, so I'm already down to only 2 storylines remaining. With under 3,500 steps now, I assault Rainwood Retreat. But once that's over, once again, I have no more quests to follow. I hearth back to Hellscream's Watch after a little research and find another required quest that's become available. I know I'm skipping a bunch of quests to only do the required ones, but this zone has felt quite messy in terms of the questing layout so far. The quest I pick up sends me to help some elementals at Thunder Peak, which is a little annoying because the previous set of quests had me in the area next door, so I definitely could have saved some steps if they were taken at the same time. 2 of these 3 elementals have a quest for me, but the only one that's listed on wowhead that's required is the one the air elemental is supposed to give me, but he doesn't have one. Only the earth and water elementals have something ready for me. I assume that these are definitely required, even though they're not listed, so I take them and head out. They send me to kill some elite flame elementals, which isn't too hard, and then fill in their holes. Now, with under 2400 steps remaining, I was correct, and the air elementals quest pops up. This is similar to the bombing run mission I just did, where it's an auto-scroller, but this time I'm turned into an air elemental and have to fight with the lead flame guy. The most important part of this though is it costs no steps, and with another storyline complete, there's already only one more to go. I hearth back to Hellscream's Watch with no objective for the 3rd or 4th time already in this zone, and I make my run towards Zorumgar Outpost on the coast. I run past through an active siege, which I apparently have nothing to do with, and then past some giant tentacles that are also a huge mystery to me, but with under 1,000 steps remaining, I arrive at the final quest hub of the zone. I make a mistake here that I don't realize until a bit later, so let's see if you guys notice it. My plan with my few remaining steps was to gather the quests I need and probably kill some Naga near the main hub, but Muglash here is an escort quest where I have to follow him as soon as it starts. I kinda panic and I wasn't expecting that, so I pick it up and just start following him. He leads you through a bunch of enemies I needed to kill, which is convenient, and then he summons a mini-boss to fight, Vorsha the Lasher. Vorsha here was one of my top contenders to tame as my pet, as it is only found in one other place in the game, and that's as a rare spawn in the Northern Barrens, which obviously I've already completed. Despite this though, there was still a tameable mob coming up that you can't find anywhere else in the whole game. With Vorsha dead, I use my few steps to head to this neighboring lighthouse and my next quest indicator without reading what the quest was. I spend 50 steps climbing the annoying spiral staircase to find that I need to get some oil to light the fire up there. So it's down the steps again to collect some Hydra blubber nearby. These aren't just any Hydra though. These are the only light blue Hydra in the whole game, and my target pet for Ashenvale. With that being said, I go to the closest one, and welcome to the team, Triathlon, the Blue Hydra. As usual, this crosses off the first requirement for completing Ashenvale, taming a unique pet. Also, as a note here, I plan on keeping my pet Fitbit out permanently, along with whatever pet I got in the zone, so I'll fix that at the next stable master and let Stepline have some rest. I make another mistake here. I had read the quest text saying that I need blubber, so I got one and I headed back to the lighthouse. I think I felt the pressure of only having a few steps left. Another 50 steps up the wait, what? I clipped through the stairs and fell back to the bottom. So after another 90 plus steps to the top, I learned that I actually needed 10 blubber to condense into 1 oil. That wasn't going to happen with only about 60 steps left. So I climb down the tower and log out once I run out of steps, looking out over the water. I had completed 21 quests on day 2 for an average of 542 steps per quest. The 3rd day starts and I log in, getting attacked by a Naga, but regardless, I add 10,365 steps to Solemate and get to hunting Hydra blubber. Pet pulling definitely helps save a lot of steps here, and luckily, when I have enough, instead of heading back to the lighthouse like I wanted to, I realize I need to go melt them at the forge at Zorumgar Outpost. I stop by to pick up Fitbit again, melt the blubber, and climb the lighthouse for the 4th time, this time finally lighting the fire. At this point, there's only 3 required quests left in the zone. 1 to collect venison from some bucks, and 2 more right outside of Blackfathom Deeps. So I head north, killing every buck I see, and then go toward the dungeon to kill Naga and collect gems. Obviously it would be great to complete the dungeon right now, but the fee is 16,000 steps for 8 bosses, and I don't have that. So, instead, I focus on completing the remaining quests. For some reason, it takes killing 14 deer to find 5 bits of venison, but whatever, that's WoW for you. With the final quest complete and ready to turn in, but not enough steps for the dungeon fee, I finally turn my sights on the remaining areas I need to visit for the exploration achievement. There are 5 left, so I start doing some research, and I've messed up pretty bad. The 5 areas are pretty scattered across the whole map, and if I wasn't doing this mostly blind, I'd definitely have been able to visit these areas much more efficiently. With about 7,200 steps left and the goal set though, I start making my way to the remaining areas. First, Orendil's Retreat. Then 800 steps south to the Shrine of Asena. 600 steps over to the Ruins of Stardust, and then a hearth back to Hellscream's Watch. With over 1400 steps already spent on the final exploration, there's only 2 places left to visit. The first one, I have to head north and push my way through the rough terrain, trying to take a more direct route. The Howling Vale, which is where I'm trying to go, I learn a bit late is actually a cave on the east side of the volcano. So after a trip through the elite fire elementals, 1000 steps, and more forcing my way through the hills, I discover the Howling Vale from the wrong side, almost soft-locking myself in a hole. A quick disengage jump out, and I make the long run all the way to the northeast corner of the zone for the final area. I definitely could have saved a few steps by hearthing and flying to Splintertree, but my hearthstone was on cooldown, and I've made it a point not to just stand and wait to save some steps. I also had to pass through an alliance zone here where I got flagged for PvP, which was a bit scary, but eventually, after another 1600 steps, I discover the final area and get the achievement for exploring Ashenvale, crossing the second prerequisite off the list. Obviously, this could have been done a lot more efficiently, but I do think that it was fun having to run across the whole map again at the end, kind of like a victory lap. The final exploration phase here though took me 4,200 steps. However, at this point, my Hearthstone was still on cooldown, so I decided to run down to Splintertree Post and fly over to Zormgar. Or that's what I would have done if I hadn't forgotten to pick up the flight path in Zormgar. That was my big mistake. Now I had to fly back to Hellscream's Watch and make the run back to the coast for a second time. Past the catapults and tentacles again, and I get to Zormgar Outpost with less than 600 steps left for the day. I make sure to grab the flight point this time and turn in the quests, earning me the Ashenvale quest achievement. That crosses off the third prerequisite on the list, leaving only Blackfathom Deeps left to do. I start heading back north toward the dungeon and run out of steps in Naga-infested waters. I'd have to wait until I'd accumulated over 16,000 steps before I could gain access to the final hurdle of the zone, so I log out for the day. On day 4, I had my worst step day yet at 4,789 steps. This was a weekend editing day and I definitely lost track of a lot of time, and it's really hard to make up those steps when it's already like 8 or 9 PM. This obviously wouldn't get me into the dungeon, so added on with day 5, I added 10,879 more steps. Unfortunately, still not reaching that dungeon fee. But with day 6 added in, another 10,687 steps, the total of 3 days worth of steps would be enough to access the dungeon. I head to the entrance and wait for a couple of the movers to show up to help me. I pay the fee of 16,000, and we take on Blackfathom Deeps. I had done it. Ashenvale on my own 2 feet. Every storyline completed, every area explored, every dungeon completed, and another loyal pet added to the team. Ashenvale was definitely a challenge, but for reasons I didn't expect. Its weird quest layout, lack of fairies, and obscure exploration areas really required a lot of steps to complete. And even though it's the largest zone so far, because it's contested between Horde and Alliance, it made the questing portion of the video much faster than it should be. So on day 6, after 28,000 steps in the zone and 16,000 more spent on the dungeon fee, totaling 44,000 steps, I take my first step into the next zone, the Stone Talon Mountains. But that's gonna have to wait until next time. Okay, so here are the new, correct, updated stats. I'll show you the whole table right now, but after I get through the Ashenvale stats, I'll show you some charts and how to compare them and some interesting details. In Ashenvale, I completed 48 quests, including the dungeon fee. That averages out to 917 steps per quest. That's insane. And overall, I've completed 220 quests, bringing my overall step average per quest up to 679 steps per quest. Despite having the fewest quests of any zone so far, it's definitely rocketed our average way up. Also, I thought it was interesting, as you can see here, the 3 main zones so far, with their dungeon fees, are actually very similar in total steps used. Thanks again for watching, your support has been absolutely awesome. I'm getting caught up on my steps in game right now, and of course, life tends to get busy when you don't expect it to. Thank you guys for being patient with some of my uploads and trying to get the add-on out. I promise you I'm still working on it. So with that being said, get out there, get some steps, and I'll see you next time.